போராடி தங்களை அர்ப்பணித்த மாவீரர்களோடு அநியாய படுகொலை செய்யப்பட்டவர்கள் எங்கள் மக்கள். இவர்களை நாங்கள் மறந்து விட்டோமானால் நாங்கள் மனிதர்களாகவே இருப்பதற்கு தகுதி இல்லாதவர்கள். நாடு கடந்த அரசாங்கம் உருவாக்கப்பட்டது ராஜதந்திர அரசியலில் ஈடுபடுவதற்காக. அந்த ராஜதந்திர அரசியலில் நாடு கடந்த அரசாங்கம் துரிதமான முன்னேற்றத்தை கண்டு வருகின்றது. அந்த வகையிலே நாடு கடந்த அரசாங்கத்தின் முதலாவது பிரகடனமாக இந்த தமிழீழ தேசிய வார பிரகடனமும், தமிழீழ நினைவேந்தல் வார பிரகடனமும், தமிழீழ தேசிய துக்க தினமும் 18ஆம் தேதிக்கு பிரகடனப்படுத்தப்பட்டிருக்கிறது. இங்கே சற்று ஆங்கிலத்தில் கூற வேண்டியிருக்கின்றது. Today we are officially launching this Tamil National Memorial Week, which will be culminating on May the 18th, that has been proclaimed as Tamil National Mourning Day. We all know there was a long-drawn war for 33 years in Sri Lanka. The Tamils, we fought for our legitimate rights, but since 1948, the Tamils have been struggling for their legitimate rights politically and in non-violent moves. But all we had was, all the Tamils were met with violence by the Sri Lankan government and the government forces since 1948 to 1974. It is at this juncture in 1975 the Tamil political leaders, comprising of a few Queen's councillors, many attorneys, they were all political leaders duly and democratically elected by the Tamil people of Sri Lanka. They gathered at Vatukote in Jaffna and passed a resolution called the Vatukote Resolution, which declared the north and east of the Sri Lankan soil, which was the traditional land of the Tamils, as the state of Tamil. And they expected at that moment the government of Sri Lanka would respect democracy and sit at the table to talk to them to resolve the difference. But then Prime Minister Sirimavo Bandaranaike's government met them again with brutal force. It is at this point the Tamil leader, the feeble, tall Thandai Selva, known as the father of the Tamil nation, Queen's Councillor S.J.V. Selvanaya, known as Thandai Selva, he finally said, I don't think even God can save the Tamils, and we may have to pursue a different modus of operandi, and then started the struggle with arms. It was unfortunate for the Tamils who loved education and hard work to pursue a path of violence in 1975 and 76. It was so unfortunate, but without no choice, they had to pursue this path. And eventually, the freedom fighters were received so very well by the masses, but unfortunately, the Cold War ended halfway during that time, and the world transformed itself to a very advanced level with the advent of technology and electronics and so on, and the large world became so small. As a result, the freedom struggle of the Tamils was unduly portrayed as terrorism, which the Tamils as a nation and as a race had to face without any choice. And the world saw what happened after that. And the war dragged on for 26, 27 years from 1983 to 2009. And with heavy brutality and with the help of almost 24 other countries, the Sri Lankan state crushed a freedom struggle and told the world, we have eradicated terrorism from our land. Yes, the world accepted it to a certain extent. Then, 2 years down the road, now the world has realized. At that point in time, in 2009, when we, the Tamils, we were out on the streets crying and begging from the international community. From January to May, we were crying and begging in the snow, rain, begging the international community, begging the United Nations to come to our aid. But because of heavy Sri Lankan governmental propaganda, that freedom struggle was seen as terrorism, and the world kept a blind eye on the bloodbath which took place on the beach of Mullivaikal, a war without any witness. Even at that time, there were a few channels from the diaspora telling the world that within the last 3 to 5 days of the war, more than 20,000 people were killed. But it was so unfortunate, even at that time, the world's apex organization, the United Nations, simply released a report saying that only 7,000 people were killed. It's so sad. The facts were buried under the carpet. They were simply swept under the carpet. But due to the struggle of the diaspora organizations, and the transnational government of Tamil, finally on June the 22nd, 2010, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon appointed a panel of experts to submit a report to him on the crimes, on the war crimes and crimes against humanity that was committed in Sri Lanka during the last stages of war. And that panel, comprising of 3 members, released its report finally on April the 25th, 2011, and the media and the world was all startled at that time to see the death toll, which the UN claimed to be was at 7,000, had risen to 40,000. The report said 7 to 40,000 people were killed in the last few days of the war. Of course, the report did hold both parties responsible for violating human rights. They came up with 5 allegations against the government of Sri Lanka and 6 allegations against the LTTE. But the allegations that were brought against the government of Sri Lanka are being now, through Channel 4 and various other media, now are being proven to be true with emerging evidence that are reaching international media such as Channel 4, AFP and Reuters. Now the world has really looked at us, the Tamils, sympathetically. And all we are asking is a simple divorce like Singapore and Malaysia. There's no sense in fighting for 60 to 70 years, killing each other. After all, when the enemy comes to the battlefield, he's being killed thinking he's an enemy. But who is being killed? Whose life is taken? It is a human life, which has more value, which can be so productive and contribute a lot to this world. So why not we depart as friends demarcate our boundaries and be two separate countries, helping each other to grow economically, politically, and flourish instead of fighting and killing each other. The Tamils, that's what we are espousing, that's what we are asking. We are simply asking for a simple divorce by way of separation with all the covenants and the democracy, and with all the covenants that are given to the human race through the United Nations. And the transnational government has very clearly said it, stipulated it, and even said it so openly. The transnational government will work with the international community, the United Nations, and all the NGOs to see that a separate, independent, and sovereign Tamil is established in the land, in the island of Sri Lanka. So this is the background of what's happening today and what's beginning today. There will be, this memorial week will be held, observed till the 18th of May, and on 15th at the Scarborough Town Centre, Albert Campbell Square, at 5 p.m. there will be a mass gathering to observe vigil, a candlelight vigil for the people that were killed in the war. And on the 18th, Tamils from all over the world, from North America and also from Europe, will be going to the two different offices of the United Nations, one in Geneva and one in New York, to hand over a petition which is being sent out to the public for signatures. It is a mass signature campaign the transnational government of Tamil has initiated. We will be collecting these signatures and handing them at the United Nations on May the 18th, which is next Wednesday, at a mass rally to the officials of the United Nations. And the petition has urged the ICC to appoint, the prosecutor of the ICC, to appoint an independent commission to pursue with the war crimes inquiries based on the UN Special Panel Experts report that was released on April 25th. And it is with this background we, the Tamils, have gathered today. And we will be engaged in political and diplomatical and most of all democratic maneuvers till we reach our goal of Tamil, so that both the Tamils and the Sinhalese can share the island of Sri Lanka as friends, not as enemies, but ruling their own territories, own independent and sovereign territories, Tamil and Sri Lanka. Thank you.